So, since you're watching this video, that means I am officially moving. I am literally in the middle of moving as I'm filming this video. If you see the behind the cameras, my place is a mess right now. It's pretty messy, and this is the one corner that still looks put together because I had to film some videos because my new apartment does not have Wi-Fi yet, and that place is a mess as well because I'm in the middle of moving. So on to the actual video, I toured like 15 plus places before we settled on the current place that we have. And what's funny is I actually didn't request to tour this place. The third girl that we had actually was the one that found it and was interested in it. And we actually applied for the apartment before seeing it. We did see it before we actually signed the lease. And yeah, I just don't have a video of that place for privacy reasons, just in case I ever blow up. And yeah, I don't want anyone like knocking on my door or anything. Yeah, but at the very least, I might have like a room tour video up eventually. By eventually, like a lot later, because I'm still in the process of setting up. But yeah, I feel like this video is kind of interesting because I was also looking up LA apartment hunting videos, and a lot of people have much higher budgets, maybe because they're full-time YouTubers or something, or making some sort of income. But yeah, mine is not. I am literally the new grad, unemployed, yeah, apartment hunting. Yeah, so on that note, we can go into the cost. So me and my friend originally decided to live together, so we were planning on splitting a room, and that's the only way we can afford rent somehow. But yeah, we were under $1,000 each, so that means we were looking at 1-bedrooms or studios for $2K, and yeah, it just wasn't a good deal. I was really like, I don't want to live in a studio because I do cook a lot, cooking content, you know, and I was not having the smell, and it's just, I feel like it just feels too much to just have one open space, so that's why we didn't go with that. And you can really not find 1-bedrooms in a 2K budget, or they're like really bad, and I don't want to suffer that much. But then that meant we decided to get a 2-bedroom, and at that point we just kind of found a stranger off Facebook. We talked to so many people. By me, I talked to so many people, like 20 plus people I bet, and we ended up finding one that works. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, we're gonna do a 2-bedroom, and at this point our budget was around $3,200 for a 2-bedroom. And at some point we were looking in the mid-city area, but I don't think I have any of those tour videos because we only looked like a couple times before something fell through. And then now we're into the Palms, Sawtelle, Culver City area, which is very common for UCLA postgrads. Yeah, and then with that, I guess that technically meant I was like around an $800 budget. Also, in case you were curious about how I'm paying rent, my dad has fortunately agreed to be my co-signer, and my parents have also agreed to help me with rent until I find a job. And I mean, they probably mean a full-time job, like they'll probably still pay it if I'm working part-time, but I'm just going to use my part-time money and just pay for my rent completely, just living like paycheck to paycheck. And then, but I'm fortunate enough that like if I need money, my parents are willing to give me money. So yeah, it would be nice if you watch my videos too. That could be a source of income and help me pay rent. Yeah, but besides that, I'm still looking into full-time jobs. Nothing seems like it's going to be working out, so yes, I think I am going to be working a minimum wage job with my UCLA degree. And then in terms of what we're looking for, the only non-negotiable was parking. Me and my roommate both have parking, and we ended up sticking with the third roommate that we have because she's the one without a car, and most places do not give you more than 2 spots. Yeah, it's just rough out here. And yeah, we need to drive. If I ever get a job, I need to commute. Currently, I am planning on working somewhere within a walking distance, so I might not even need my car. But if I ever do get a job, I definitely have to commute. And it might be pretty far now that we're living like pretty West LA. And then yeah, we really didn't need anything else. Like we didn't need a gym, a pool, we didn't need any amenities. We were willing to sacrifice on natural lighting. If I were a full-time content creator, I would love to have a nicer place, but we're not that. Like genuinely, we were so open to anything. We were open to like a 1-bathroom option. We also didn't need in-unit washer or dryer. Obviously that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think we currently have AC, like central AC. I think we have to buy something maybe for our individual room. There might be there might be a unit in the living room and the kitchen. This is genuinely broke, new grad at its best. Yeah, that's just very unromantic post-grad life, not the full-time job making 100K like most UCLA grads might be doing, if not school. So I mean, wants do include natural lighting, renovated units. I also prefer working with like a management system instead of like an individual landlord, because as I will eventually share, I had a crazy landlord experience that fell through because of how crazy the landlord was. So yeah, still stick to prefer the management over a landlord situation, but it is what it is. Okay, let's get right into it. So this very first place is in Sawtelle. This was a rough start to apartment hunting. The pictures really catfished us because in reality it was not newly renovated. What's funny is at the time that I toured there were several people coming in and out. It started at $3,095 and eventually dropped to $2,918, which is crazy because if you've been apartment hunting in LA, most places are leased within the week. Besides the dirty interior, it was next to the freeway, which was not ideal for health and sound reasons. Also, the freeway was messy as hell. There was no way I would agree to this place, and it seemed like a lot would agree because this listing is still up a couple months later. I think my verdict is that I am not fond of this area. It looks like super dusty, like old. Yeah, I'm not a fan. So the second place is also in Sawtelle, and this one's $3,000 a month. It was much cleaner, but I wasn't fond of the layout that had too many doors clustered in one place, and it was also on the first floor with no AC. At that time, there was someone asking about how to apply for the apartment, whereas we didn't want to rush the decision and immediately decided not to bother. Also at this time, we had roommates, one of which who had a car in addition to ours, so that meant 3 parking spots, and this one only offered the 2 tandem, and street parking was impossible from what we saw, so it became immediate no anyways. This apartment was in Westwood, which was less ideal for me because I assume I'll need to commute to East LA for film-related jobs. Anyways, this place was really expensive, obviously because it was in Westwood, and it was $3,450. Of course, the place was nice and clean, newly renovated. It had amenities such as a tiny, tiny gym, a sauna, a rooftop pool, and like 2 study rooms, but it was only 900 square foot, and it was just too expensive for what it was, and I didn't want to be this close to UCLA anymore. So I am supposed to be apartment hunting, but I just got stood up by the first apartment complex because their email for cancellations didn't get sent out, and I'm already here. So that was kind of ridiculous. But now I have another tour literally like 5 minutes away from this area, and I am just gonna park there real quick and then call them back again because I called. It might be lunchtime. It's like, yeah, it's not even lunchtime. It's like 11 a.m. But yeah, so I'm just gonna drive there real quick. But yeah, so I'm just gonna head there and call again, and hopefully it works out. So I don't know what's up with these leasing offices not replying and sending information, because I was gonna ask my second appointment to start early, and they just aren't getting back to like the 3 different numbers I've called. There's like one on their little sign, there's one on Google, and then I called the leasing office just now, and like it looks like nobody's inside either. Like, what's up with these tours are just flopping so hard. And so like my tour is for an hour later, but I wanted to see if I could get it done earlier. It doesn't look like it will. So now I'm just gonna sit around for like a little bit and then call again. This is not fun. Not fun at all. So this one was our first one in Culver City at $3,135, which wasn't the worst, but this setup was kind of strange. Apart from the room, the apartment complex area looked like a little model home with fake grass and whatnot. I think the only unit they had available for touring at the time was a 2-bed, 1-bathroom, and it only had 1 car parking, but you could potentially purchase a second at $100 a month. So not really worth it. Street parking was definitely doable though, and there were a lot of spaces open. Also, there's no elevator if you were on the second floor, and there was no AC in the rooms. Again, this one was in Culver City and was cheap, but it was still expensive for the price. It was 2,995 and 740 square feet, which is a solid 200 square feet less than most places. It was really nicely renovated and looked super clean and actually had AC in the rooms. Another good thing is that this was on the fourth floor, which was the top unit, so we wouldn't have to deal with loud upstairs neighbors. Although it was small, it was nice, and we considered putting in an application until we toured the later units this day. Thinking back, this was way too expensive for what it was, which is also why it was still on the market a month later. This one we did the same day, also in Culver City, and this one we actually tried to put an application in. It was on the first floor, and one thing that was less ideal is that it was facing the street. If we lived here, we'd definitely be the most at risk for burglary, but for 2,900, an in-unit washer and dryer and 1,100 square feet was a steal. The only thing is the landlord was this crazy lady who was bad at responding to questions and refused to let our third roommate tour the place because she required you to tour before leasing. And the biggest con is that the kitchen has no natural lighting, which is bad for filming for me, the food content, you know. And in general, the styling was pretty old and just not very aesthetic. So for some reason, this next apartment we came back to Sawtelle. This place was really nicely renovated. It was only 2 stories, and I'm not sure if it had an elevator. The refrigerator wasn't there, and they had some special deal. If you sign the same day, you can get like $200 off. I kind of forgot the actual numbers. We weren't sure if they were going to provide a fridge as part of the signing deal or if they would regardless. This was interesting in that it was a 1.5 bathroom. Like, at that point, might as well build a shower. Anyways, I wish I had more lighting, and low-key, it was pretty expensive for what it was, so we didn't bother to put in an application. So, this apartment is in Palms and it was off to a rough start. The person that was supposed to give us a tour made a mistake and didn't respond to my calls that we eventually left after 15 minutes past our appointment time. On our way home, we got a call with the person showing us the place, apologizing, saying they messed up the time, so we went back. I feel like this apartment also catfished me. It was really old looking from the outside and looked really run down in the inside. I feel like the rooms are small and don't believe this apartment to be 1,200 square feet because it seems tiny. I also did not like the hallway cluster with the 2 rooms and the bathroom all in the same area. The styling of the place was not very cute and the kitchen was extremely small. This place was also on the second floor where there was no elevator, which isn't ideal. I also did not really trust this management considering the person I originally contacted sent his girlfriend who knew nothing about the place. Like, not even the price. Definitely one of the stranger apartment touring experiences I had. So this apartment was in Culver City. This specific unit was only a 1 bedroom since their 2 bedroom was not yet available to tour. It was renovated and everything was pretty standard, not oddly shaped or colored like some other places. This place was super expensive though. It was only 852 square feet and despite it feeling large, it was like 3,400, which is not worth the price. It actually might have been closer to 3,200 because they did have a concession, but this place was pretty close to the freeway, like the street perpendicular to it, and I was not fond of the area it was in. So next, this apartment actually is the same management system. It was literally like a couple blocks down the street. This one was the better bang for your buck, as he said, since it was a townhouse. To be honest, I was not really fond of the townhouse style. Sure, stairs are cool and all, but the second floor was basically half the size of the first, and it seemed like a lot of unutilized space. I was also not a fan of it facing the freeway because I went down a rabbit hole of negative health effects associated with living next to a freeway. Next, this apartment is also in Culver City, and this apartment is going to be the exact reason I mentioned I hate a landlord based system because this lady was insane. I think technically it was a management system, but the property manager was handling everything. But anyways, this place was really good for the price, but again, this was next to the freeway. So that's going to be the main reason I lean against this place. My roommate actually really wanted to live here because of the affordable rent, and there wasn't anything bad enough for me to say no. So I basically go along with it while I'm telling myself it'll be okay because it's only for a year. The entire process ended up so messy. First, the application website was down, so we had to submit it by filling out on the website and submitting through email. Then we had to go in person to pay the application fee. But before we got there, our third roommate noticed there was a $200 cleaning fee not listed on the lease. She asked the manager about it and they argue until eventually the manager feels the need to call me to complain. I must have spoken with her on the phone 10 plus times during this lease signing process. I was going insane dealing with her and eventually she asked me to reconsider because she was annoyed with the entire process. We eventually called it off and no money was wasted. It was this whole hassle, but I was so happy it fell through because I did not want to live here. The next apartment is again in Culver City. Like almost every other apartment we looked at, this was on the first floor, but it had a little stair set going up so that it wasn't easily accessible from the street. And it was a corner unit, which is also nice. It was renovated in a style I'm quite fond of. Light wood and light walls, very modern looking, you know? The main thing I didn't like is the odd layout. The kitchen leads almost instantly into a bedroom, and I really don't like the hallways as I feel like they're such a waste of space and so narrow. I didn't like that the natural lighting was pretty bad in the larger room, which probably would have been ours, and coming from an apartment with a super rectangular room, I know that lighting does not reach the opposite end, which is not ideal for filming for me. The bathrooms were nice and large, but for our room, the bathroom was placed behind the door, which is kind of inconvenient. It's a little bit old and not very efficient in terms of space, but it wasn't bad. The next one is also in Culver City and is from the same management, Lido Apartments, which generally had well-maintained apartment complexes. This is why I prefer a large management system. This was also, of course, on the first floor, but you had to take an elevator to get up. I didn't like the style of kitchen, but I did appreciate how it was larger and had more counter space. I also love how it had a place for bar stools, as I love the convenience of making food in the kitchen and not having to move far to eat. The living room again is super rectangular and bad for natural lighting, but since I never spent time in the living room, I didn't really care. I do not understand LA architects because why is this room not square? How hard is it to make a room square? There's this awkward little corner and I have no idea what you're supposed to stick in it. One nice thing about this place is that it actually had in-unit washer and dryer. The other room honestly looked a bit larger, but the natural lighting was not the greatest. Overall, was pretty decent for a reasonable price. So at this point, I exhausted all the Culver City, Sawtelle, Palms apartments available so that this one is in Mid-City. I was not a fan of this apartment complex layout because all the living room windows face the inside, so if everyone has their living room blinds open for natural light, you can see into everyone else's homes. There were also only like 8 units, and this was on the second floor without an elevator. They also only gave one parking spot. I didn't take a video, but street parking was literally impossible, and since we have 2 cars, this was a definite no. This next one is in Beverly Hills, which you would think would be hella expensive, but it was actually pretty within budget. The biggest thing is parking would cost an additional $100 more, making it average price rather than good. But at this point, we were about 2 weeks before me and my roommate's lease ended, and we were pretty sad on our third roommate while this was too far of a commute for her. When I toured this, it was around the time our third roommate found our current apartment, so this was our second choice. But if we went with this, we would have had to find a new roommate if our current apartment didn't work out. And finally, we've made it to the last apartment I toured. This, again, was in Beverly Hills, and it wasn't bad. It gave off an old apartment building that's been renovated on the inside, but the hallway leading to the unit looks so old and so disgusting. The layout was weird and seemed an inefficient use of space. I don't know why architects in LA build the strangest looking apartments. Like, is it so hard to make things more square and not incorporate all these weird circular hallways? This place was one of the few that had in-unit washer and dryer, but to be honest, I was not a fan of it being in the room because my old apartment layout was like that and it was not fun with someone constantly coming into my room, and it was so loud. Not terrible, but not one of our better options. Okay, so that is all for the video. So if you're curious about what we actually ended up going with, so we ended up finding this place that is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It is $2,800 and I think it's like rent controlled or something like that. So eventually this price will be competitive in the future. I mean, $2,800 for a 2-bedroom is pretty good. It's also over 1,000 square feet. I think I mentioned earlier, but it is not in unit washer or dryer. We are on the first floor. The rooms don't have AC. There's parking spots, it's one tandem spot, but the spots are so freaking tiny that I scratched my car for the very first time in my life, so I'm not very happy. Also, we're pretty close to UCLA, like a lot closer than I'd like. My roommate does work at UCLA, and I think the third girl also does, but if I get a job, it will not be in this area, so I'm expecting pretty long commute if I ever get a job. Yeah, that's my entire personality, being jobless. But yeah, I would say that I don't love the place, but I'm a new grad, beggars can't be choosers, we're on a budget, like, yeah. I think part of the reason I'm not very fond of it is because it's a pretty small unit. I really prefer like apartment complex kind of things. Like there probably aren't more than like 20 units, I'd say. The parking spot also really irritated me to death because I've never scratched my car before, so that's also. And then lastly, I think it's probably just associating it with the labor of moving. Once again, I think I mentioned, I moved all by myself. So it was quite labor intensive. It was like painful. It was annoying. So right now I do associate the new place with just like being a hassle. And so that could also be why I'm not very fond of it. We'll see how it is after I move out. I'll let you know the update of how things are. But yeah. This is probably one of my last videos filmed in this apartment, and then in the future I have to figure out my new setup for filming. Like this is actually pretty good, but the new room layout is a little bit differently, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna have like a corner like this anymore. But yeah, please support my videos so I can escape this apartment. But yeah, we'll get a room tour going once she's decorated and once I actually decide to clean everything up. So yeah, that's all for today. So